Just the News says Arizona judge approves Kari Lake's request to examine ballots. The inspection is slated to begin at 8 a.m. next Tuesday. This really surprised me. It really surprised me. Judge Peter Thompson on Thursday issued the ruling which allows the inspection of random ballots in the county ahead of the trial date. The Republican had previously filed a request to do so, and Arizona law provides for a candidate challenging election results to demand ballot inspections to prepare. So Thompson granted 3 of Lake's 4 demands, allowing the inspection of 50 random ballot-on-demand printed ballots, 50 random early ballots, and 50 random BOD ballots marked spoiled. The judge denied her bid to inspect 50 random early ballot envelopes, which is weird, but either way, this is huge. This is Kari Lake's election contest moving forward to an evidentiary point. Now, there is in the ruling that if the case is dismissed, then this is vacated basically. But with Trump in 2020, almost all of the court cases that they had were dismissed on standing. You can't do that here. Arizona law prescribes for this kind of action. So I don't know exactly what they're going to find, but there's already witness testimony coming out, as evidence. And with Kari Lake being granted the ability to inspect these random ballots, what she wants to do is 50 ballots from each different place. So this may actually be 50 random ballot on demand, 50 random BOD, 50 early, and it could be at like every different place in Maricopa County. So I guess my question is, I wonder what ultimately will come from this. And I don't really know what else to say about it other than I think this is massive. Still could potentially result in nothing if Kari Lake is wrong about everything. But what do you think happens? Just hypothetically, they've already certified, Katie Hobbs has certified her own election in favor of herself for winning. But what happens then to YouTube's rules? What happens to Twitter's misinformation rules if next week on the 20th, they do the random inspection and find like a 17% inaccuracy or something? Some people have already pointed out, there was one post that a 3% margin of error is greater than the margin of victory. That means if they do these random samplings and find a very small sample of bad counts, then what happens?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know where to go with this one. I'm just like, it's big.
I mean, it depends on like Arizona's law, right? If it's a big enough.
Well, it depends on the judge, really.
Right. And if it's a random sampling, like if enough of them are messed up, at some point, like we need to study a bigger sampling / maybe all of them. I mean, this is the thing that could take a really long time to get clarification on. And at a certain point, like, I hope that Kari Lake has enough backers willing to, donate to her legal fund, because this is going to be an ongoing fight for a long time.
Imagine the 21st comes around. They have the trial, because that was the trial date. So it's 20 and 21st. I think the 20th and 21st. What happens if the judge issues a stay on Katie Hobbs becoming governor? Just like the political ramifications of whatever that means would be crazy. That's why.
Yeah. So then who's governor?
Right. Ducey, Doug Ducey stays?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He just stays in office.
The thing is,
until they get done.
I've got a normalcy bias. I cannot imagine that happening because it would be so shocking to all of us. But if it does, oh man.
But I don't think Kari Lake's going to give up. I think she will push until the end. And so like it is going to be on Hobbs and I guess the election officials in Arizona to either be like, no, we have enough evidence to prove you really lost, or they're going to have to acquiesce that there was something wrong.
But what I kind of, here's where I'm at right now with this. There's a lot of people who are screaming fraud and all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't know about that. But I am willing to bet that with universal mail-in voting and the way they handle this, they're not doing signature verification as rigorously as they used to, which means I would not be surprised if Kari Lake can actually find a percentage high enough through the random sampling to at least throw everything into question, which could result in what? A stay of, her being inaugurated, or whatever the word is, or then what? A new election? How would they deal with this? I mean, this is crazy.
I also would really like to know the judge's reasoning behind not allowing the
envelopes?
Yeah.
I know, that's kind of weird.
It is weird.
Just be like, sure, look at the envelope, whatever.
Right.
I don't know.
Unless they don't maintain the envelopes. Like if all the counties don't have a consistent policy on what to do with the envelopes, like maybe you can't get 50 random samplings. This is just speculation on my end. Also, this makes me want everyone to read their state's laws regarding elections. Like if there's a close election in your state, what does your state allow you to do? Because like without this law, it would be really easy to just deny Kari Lake her day in court.
Here's something that I think people should consider too. I don't know what's going to happen in this. It's in court. We'll see. But you have to imagine, with everything that happened in 2020 and the accusations about Arizona, that Kari Lake behind the scenes was placing those chess pieces in the right order. You can't be someone who believes Trump was right about 2020 and not cross your T's, dot your I's, and do everything possible to make sure that when this happens, surprise, surprise, Kari Lake is now in the fray, challenging it. She tried suing early, way before the election, saying the machines need to work. And they said no standing because the election didn't happen. Then we had the tabulation error, and she sued saying, I told you. So it's like the fact that the court system operates that way is broken as it is.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to bet that Kari Lake, Trump's allies, probably put a bunch of money into planning for a legal maneuver after the election because they expected something like this.
Yeah. It's also frustrating, though, to watch her being painted as this crazy conspiracy theorist, because of her history of questioning previous things. That's all I'll say on that. But it's frustrating because it just feels like such gaslighting that they're like, oh, look, here she is again, questioning another election. She's crazy. She's never going to, abide by democracy, whatever they want to call it. And so I think it's just frustrating to watch her being gaslit because here you see she has merit. When she came out and she gave that big long, I think it was her last video that she did where she detailed what all is involved in the lawsuit. I mean, if she can back that up, if what she's saying she actually has, that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, she's saying they just randomly came up with all of these thousands of votes out of nowhere. Or
they found them and something is wrong or whatever.
Right.
I don't know though. There's some claim that a witness said they saw a ballot from a dead person. I don't know about all that. That's what the court is for. But if that turned out to be true, this is why I say normalcy bias. Come on. If that actually was exposed in court and they couldn't deny it, the whole country would erupt. It would be the craziest thing ever. But I got to be honest, we're getting close to 2028, fourth turning and all that. You got the Antifa guys in Georgia who are, that story about the Antifa guys, they were setting houses on fire.
God.
A guy was in his truck and they started bashing it. He jumped out, they flipped it and set it on fire. So when you hear stories about Antifa doing that kind of stuff, and that's now, Antifa has an autonomous zone in Georgia right now. And it's just not being reported on, probably because people are just yeah, it's normal now. It is normal to hear stories of Antifa setting up autonomous zones.
I literally had no idea that was happening.
Yep. In Georgia.
Like today.
Right. Yeah. 5 of them got charged with terrorism.
Well, just, okay.
Like the other day. That autonomous zone's been there and we don't even know about it because It's just no journalist cares. Nobody's tracking it. Nobody's reporting on it.
They can't really, cover it because, they get beat up if they do.
Yeah.
Sure.
Also, they're anti-fascist, so they're the good guys, right?
Right.
I don't think you understand. Yeah.
No, but my point is, it's become normal.
Yeah.
Come on. If you went back even 4 years and said that far left extremists would be seizing parts of their cities and creating autonomous jurisdictions, people would laugh at you and call you nuts. And now it's happening. I don't want to say it happened all the time, but it happened again, and we had no idea they were doing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're normalizing degeneracy just all across the board, though. It's not just with Antifa. It's with, I go back to the sexualization of children and things like that. You show them something that's sexually explicit, and they're like, yeah, what's the problem? It's just completely normal to them.
They're gutting the culture of America. Mm-hmm. They did gut it. And as I was saying earlier, I think the main issue is that for any corporation, for any law enforcement, there is no upside to standing up for America and independents and conservatives.
Yeah.
They're not going to do anything. If you defy the left, they will attack you. They will try to kill you. They will burn down your store. If you defy the right, conservatives grumble on Twitter. Not only that, if they go after the far right, everyone cheers. Mm-hmm. If they go after conservatives back off and complain. If they go after the left and liberals, Antifa shows up with crowbars, baseball bats, and Molotov cocktails.
And it's frustrating, too, because being in, the kind of the activism community, I'm constantly like, guys, we are in the spot in society where we are because everyone sat at home and didn't do anything, right? You kept to your families. You minded your own business. You said, live and let live. I'm just going to mind my own business. And meanwhile, the left took culture and we see how much they eroded it. So now when I go to them and I say, are you ready? Do you want to get active? They're like, well, no, because now this is the culture and I might get fired. Mm-hmm. Right? I can't participate because if my boss finds out that I'm a conservative, they might can me, and I have to feed my family. So what's the answer?
But it's only because conservatives don't stand up that exists.
I know.
Right?
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So
Yeah,
you're stuck in this cycle of like, well, we
No, you just
are
gotta
where
do
we
it. You
are.
just gotta do it.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like all the rest of it be damned, because how else do you stop it? We are here because you guys said I'm going to sit around and mind my own business and let the left do whatever they want.
These libertarians, I tell you.
Okay.
I still think that's sort of.
You want to start this again? Let's go. Let's go right now.
Did you see what Dave Smith tweeted? He said Tim Pool, Michael Knowles, Timcast, Michael Knowles, and Luke aren't allowed to talk about libertarian community without me or Michael Malice present.
It was 3-on-1, and I thought a lot about the stuff that we talked about. I thought I could do a lot better, but specifically when it comes to what you were just mentioning, there should also be a lot of blame on the Bush administration. I think the Bush administration pushed a lot more people to the left, and I think they were like, hey, we can't have these crazy people starting wars, stealing all the money, giving all the money to Halliburton, screwing over the soldiers, and screwing over the American people, spending more money than they ever had. I think the Bush administration truly wasn't listening to libertarians, wasn't influenced by libertarians, was an administration that truly put us on this path that we are right now, setting up a deep state, setting up a war on terror that now is being turned around against Republicans and conservatives. So, to make to the point to Michael's points, even last night, he specifically said, oh, it's libertarians that created a situation where conservatives are this bad. No, it was Republicans and conservatives that screwed themselves and created this situation that there was a bigger pushback against. He also mentioned specifically Vietnam. If you look at the Cultural Revolution in the 60s, what spurred that on? Vietnam, the assassination of JFK, which the government, by the way, the CIA, is still keeping thousands of documents secret as of today, not finding out exactly what happened there. And it was also the CIA that was also dosing people with acid, pushing a cultural revolution. So there's a lot of different things to kind of examine here and take a step back when it comes to blaming everything on libertarians.
I'm triggered, so I'm going to read this chat comment. I'm not necessarily triggered, but Stone says, "Mr. Millionaire Tim Pool, you have to risk it all." And the way I interpret that is like, I'm doing really, really well, and there's little risk. So there's an old story about the sword of Damocles. I'm sure y'all have heard it, right? The dude goes to the king and says, oh, how glorious it would be to be king. And he says, how about I let you sit in the throne for one day and be king? And he says, oh, joy, whoopee me. And then when he goes and sits in the throne, he looks up and there's a sword hanging from a single horse's hair right above his head. And he goes, I don't want to sit here anymore. And he was like, you think that sitting in the throne is real great until you realize everyone's trying to kill you. Mm-hmm. So what does it mean to risk it all? It's a good question. We certainly are comfortable because of the success of the show. And I really do appreciate everybody who's made that possible. But there's also a bullet hole in my kitchen because two men targeting us smashed through the window and climbed in. And that was actually not even the first incident. I can't talk about the other ones. There's also some other things I can't talk about that happened today. Because if I went and told you about every single time someone committed a very serious crime against us, then that's probably all we would ever talk about. So risking it all. I mean, this is the way I kind of see it, which is frustrating. I understand for the average person, it's very difficult to step into the fray, to say to their company, no. I get it. You know, I don't have a family. That's one risk I don't have, and you do. And you're willing to bow to the corrupt and the evil if it means shielding your children for the time being. But the end result, I suppose, is just going to be your kids living under the same boot. For me, man, and I mean, honestly, for everybody who's here and works here, when someone shows up and breaks in or sends us death threats or we get, my family gets threatening phone calls, I kind of feel like we are taking big risks doing all of this when we could probably just make like a gaming channel and, walk away from everything. So I've talked about it before where it would be so much easier just to quit, retire, take whatever I've got and just go live in the mountains and say, I am done. The risk isn't worth it. But I can't do that. Yeah. The risk is what comes. Like the risk is what we accept in order to fight the fight, in order to challenge this. And that means that I have to obfuscate my location. It means that there's probably going to be more people who try and break into my house and who do break into my house. And there's going to be more gunshots. And eventually there will be critical injury from it and things will get crazy. I can walk away from all that, I guess, if I didn't want to risk it. Mm-hmm. So I kind of envy the people who are sitting, at their house. They're playing video games with their kids thinking, I'm not going to say anything. And I get what they're saying, but far be it from me to be the person to take the risk. I'm jealous of that. Yeah. I'd probably just prefer to go to the skate park every day and then just, I could have taken the money I got from Disney when I worked for them and never had to work and just lived in a van and said, screw you guys, you're on your own. So I don't know, man. That's kind of how I feel about it.
I think that, to a certain extent, you are it's easy for people to criticize you that you don't take enough risks. They don't really see all the risks that you take, and as a trickle down effect, everyone at our company takes. But I would go one step further and say you have to think of that Ronald Reagan quote, all great change in America starts at the dinner table. Like, you are in a position to take greater risks because you have, a bigger public platform, you might have more resources, but like, if people are not at home with their children discussing like openly what their values are and what values they want their children to carry into the future, it doesn't matter how many risks every public figure takes, right? Like, if we don't live our principles day by day, you could take as many risks and put yourself in danger all the time, but ultimately the influence is limited. Like, people have the ability to take risks themselves, even if it's not standing up to their boss, but to be open with their children. I can't tell you how many people I know don't discuss what American culture is with their families. They say, well, we don't want to talk politics with our children. We don't want to talk about our history. Like, there are risks and opportunities for people every day. You don't have to have a ton of money or a huge following on the internet to do this. Like, you have to live your values. And I think that's why, I don't know, it's hard because you do take a lot of risks, but also like you do it because you believe in what you're doing. People can take these risks in their personal lives, be more open with their friends about what they believe or what they won't tolerate. They just choose not to because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I dealt with a lot of crazy, security things throughout my career too. Also, physically involved in a lot of crazy stuff. A lot of the stuff I don't talk about. I know, Tim, you don't talk about the stuff that you deal with as well, but you just got to take it one step at a time. Yeah, you got to be smart. You got to make sure you're not going to be a victim. I started, learning self-defense in many different ways and instances, and that also helps, gives you peace of mind here. But it's crazy out there, and a lot of the times people don't understand, like, the crazy-ish that we had to go through, that I had to go through, like, from Chicago with the police officers, from interrogations, from getting jumped and attacked, from the things that are happening at the home here. This is just like the beginning of a lot of other very serious things to come. So personal defense is more important than ever.
I also think, just kind of going back to what his comment really was, I took from that, you need to be the guy, because we just need figureheads saying these things. We don't need to be doing them. Meanwhile, contrast that with the left, who has infiltrated the medical community. They've infiltrated
Taco Bell.
They've infiltrated the education community.
I'm not kidding.
Starbucks.
They've infiltrated all of these different places.
Chick-fil-A.
Right, they're boots on the ground. They're going in and they're getting it done. And then this viewpoint is just like, well, you just need to be our guy, and so be it. You're the rich guy. You need to put yourself out there and do it. And it's like, do you guys not see that this is why we're losing? Because they're over there doing the work that needs to be done, infiltrating in the community to change the culture, and we're just over here like, well, you need to do it all for us.
The story about Taco Bell was a guy wearing a mask that said Black Lives Matter. And his manager said, you can't wear a political mask at work. And he says, I will not take this off. And they said, then leave. So he grabbed his phone and he filmed himself saying, they just told me to leave. They're firing me because I wear Black Lives Matter. Taco Bell panicked, apologized, and reinstated him. Dude was willing to lose everything for a mask with a logo on it. Meanwhile, there's a lot of people who are like, well, I could, but my worst case scenario is I get yelled at by my boss. Or my worst case scenario is that I could lose my job and I have a family to feed. And I'm like, I hear you, man. No, I do respect it. I don't want people to put their families at risk. I get it. But I just hope you guys realize the left is willing to literally burn down buildings. In Georgia, leftists torched 2 houses, flipped a truck over and set it on fire, stolen from a guy. They had gasoline and explosives. That's the length that they're willing to go. And many people here are like, yeah, but I could lose my job. It's like, those dudes could blow up.
Right.
Like, there's videos of Antifa being set on fire. They keep doing it. They're throwing explosives. They're being charged with terror, and it's not going to stop them. There is a clear distinction between the willingness to engage in conflict between the two factions. There's the pro-America side that says we must just calm down. We must just mind our own business, keep our heads down, and let it all blow over. And there are a lot of people, I'd say half or more, that are like, no, I'm going to speak up. I'm going to stand up. I will never back down. I can respect that. But I look at it like when we had Rick Santorum on, and he said, we can't impeach Joe Biden. No, we can't do that. We've got to play by the rules. We got to. And I'm like, impeaching Joe Biden doesn't accomplish anything but a symbolic victory in the first place. If you're unwilling to just even wave a sign saying we mad because it's decorum, well, then you're going to lose.
Yeah. The right has still not learned the lesson that you have to fight fire with fire. And they're so concerned about being moral, right? But we're the
wait.
moral ones, right?
I think you can fight fire, with a controlled burn. They'll like burn a stretch so that the fire stops. But I'm just asking people on the right to fight fire with water, right? We don't want a destructive force.
Right.
We just need there to be some of it.
Yeah.
And so what's happening is if a bunch of people are like, look, man, I can't bail water with you because I'll get too close to the flames and, I don't want to risk hurting my hands. I got kids to feed. It's like, well, there are people out here who are currently being singed and burned for you. And many of them are respecting your decision not to be involved.
And not just for you, but for your children. That's where, and I understand and I try to be empathetic to that view, but I'm like, I have the children too, and I'm out there doing the hard work. You know why? Because I want my children to have a better place for them when they grow up. Why else do it? Right? I mean, if it's just for us, well, I mean, by the time it gets that bad, maybe we'll, have gone.
See, I think there's a whole wave of people who are like watching you fight the fire, and they're over here being like, the fire's getting closer. Do a better job.
Right,
I don't understand.
Right.
I think that there is such a sense that it is not your responsibility, and that's where I come back to, like, if you don't live by the values that you expect everyone else to promote, then, like, what are you doing? You're not helping at all.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.